They went to the city offices where they found Frank and Maya, as well as Mary Dunkel and Spencer Jackson. They all greeted each other with relief. But there was no time for catching up on their various adventures. Frank was busy before a screen, talking to someone in orbit by the sound of it, and he shrugged off their hugs and kept talking, waving once later to acknowledge their appearance. Apparently, he was hooked into a functioning communications system, or even more than one, because he stayed in front of the screen, talking to one face or another, for the next 6 hours straight. Oh my god, dude. Did Frank do all of this? Not all of it. He was attacked in a revolution. He was attacked in a revolt. I bet Frank cut the fucking space elevator, dude. What the fuck? Alright, I'm getting ahead of myself here. I hate Frank. I hate him so much. He's on site. Why is his radio working, though? He totally would, dude, because he was attacked in a riot, and he clutched his pearls, and he and Maya hid as their fucking bubble was depressurized, and they hid in a office building, and Maya's like, "What's going on, Frank?" And Frank's like, "It's a fucking revolution. Get your head down, like fucking hide, bitch." But then after that, he's the kind of shifty dog that would, like, he'd use that as an opportunity, don't waste a catastrophe. He's like, oh, well, if the revolutionaries are blowing up towns, I could just add a couple. I could blow up a town and nobody would be the wiser. I bet he killed Arcady. He killed John. He just straight up had John assassinated. So that's what started all this. Frank caused the first riot on Mars like 20 years ago. Like 20 years ago, Frank actually started the first riot. And now he's like chatting. He's got communications. He wants power. He hated Phyllis. He totally would be like, fine, nobody can have the space elevator. Apparently, he was hooked into a functioning communications system, or even more than one, because he stayed in front of the screen talking to one face or another for the next 6 hours straight, pausing only to sip water or make another call. Not sparing another glance for his old compatriots. Okay, or he's fucking losing his mind, based on the next sentence. He seemed to be in a permanent fury, his jaw muscles bunching and unbunching rhythmically. Other than that, he was in his element, explaining and lecturing, wheedling and threatening, inquiring and then commentating impatiently on the answers he got. He just like me for real, though. God damn it. Ow. I can't even get comfortable in this chair. But other than that, he was in his element, explaining and lecturing, wheedling and threatening, inquiring and then commentating impatiently on the answers he got. Wheeling and dealing in his old style. in other words, but with an angry, bitter, even frightened edge. As if he had walked off a cliff and was trying to argue his way back to ground. Yeah. I do like seeing Frank panicked though. He's literally the dog that caught the car. Ugh, I hate him. I'm a dog, and if I ever caught the car, I would handle it way better. And I wouldn't murder John to do it. That's actually the perfect metaphor. Frank's about leverage and control. This is chaos. He hates it. Yeah, okay, like, I wasn't sure at first, but now that I'm reading further, I definitely... Because he was stressed before the revolution, but then we haven't heard from him since the day that he and Maya were in one of the riots / attacks. But yeah, he's literally the dog that caught the car. And I guess to extend the metaphor, John was also a dog who was chasing a car. But Frank thought that John would get the car before him, so then he fucking pushed John under the wheels of the car. And that's a dog that I do not stand for, okay? That's fucked up, dude. Neither of you would have known what to do. Now we'll see who can fight in quicksand, you bitch. The car was not named Maya. That car was named Geopolitical Economic Sociology. Or Geopolitical Economics. Aeropolitical Economics. No relation to the areolas of Maya. Although Maya was a catalyst. She was definitely a catalyst. Because everything for men is a fucking dick swinging contest, dude. And women are emotional harpies playing with the minds of men. You know what? I don't even need to finish the book anymore. It's Conquest 101. Thank you, Water Tiger. So then it became Maya. Think about it. Maya. Mars. They share a lot of the same letters. Okay, I'm gonna keep going. He's clenching his jaw muscles bunching and unbunching rhythmically. Other than that, he was in his element, explaining and lecture. Okay, I already read this. In other words, wheeling and dealing in his old style, in other words. But with an angry, bitter, even frightened edge. As if he had walked off a cliff and was trying to argue his way back to ground. When he finally clicked off, he leaned back in his seat and sighed histrionically. Then rose stiffly from his seat. Remember to stretch. He rose stiffly from his seat and came over to greet them, putting a hand briefly on Nadia's shoulder. Aside from that, he was brusque with all of them, and completely uninterested in how they had managed to make it to Cairo. He only wanted to know who they had met, and where, and how well these scattered parties were doing, and what they intended. They've got a lot to tell him. And how well these scattered parties were doing and what they intended. Once or twice, he went back to his screen and contacted these groups immediately on being informed of their location. How the fuck is he doing this, by the way? He's like, oh, who'd you meet? Oh, survivors in the fucking desert? Let me call them now. You told me where they are. Yeah, okay, see, I'm getting ahead of myself here. Once or twice, he went back to the screen and contacted these groups immediately on being informed of their location, an ability that stunned the travelers, who had assumed that everyone had been cut off like they had. Unoma links, Frank explained, running a hand over his swarthy jaw. They're keeping some channels open for me. Why? Sachs said. Because I'm trying to stop this. I'm trying for a ceasefire. Then a general amnesty. Then a reconstruction joined by all. But under whose direction? Unoma's, of course, and the national offices. But Unoma agrees only to the ceasefire, Sachs ventured, while the rebels only agree to the general amnesty. Frank nodded curtly. And neither like the reconstruction joined by all. But the current situation is so bad, they may go for it. 4 more aquifers have been blown since the cable came down. They're all equatorial, and some people are saying it's cause and effect. Anne shook her head at this, and Frank looked pleased to see it. They were broken open. I was pretty sure. They broke one at the mouth of Chasma Borealis. It's pouring out into the Borealis dunes. The weight of the polar cap probably puts that one under a good bit of pressure, Anne said. Do you know what happened at the Do you know what happened to the Acheron group? Sachs asked Frank. No, they've disappeared. It might be like with Arcady, I'm afraid. He glanced at Nadia, pursed his lips unhappily. I should be getting back to work. But what's happening on Earth? Anne demanded. What does the UN have to say about all this? Mars is not a nation, but a world resource, Frank quoted heavily. They're saying that the tiny fraction of humanity that lives here cannot be allowed to control the resources. When the human material base as a whole... Mars is not a nation, but a world resource, Frank quoted heavily. They're saying that the tiny fraction of humanity that lives here can't be allowed to control the resources when the human material base as a whole is so deeply stressed. That's probably true, Nadia heard herself say. It's probably true. Her voice was harsh, a croak. It felt like she hadn't spoken in days. Frank shrugged. Sachs said, I suppose that's why they've given the transnationals such a free hand. It seems to me there's more of their security here than the UN police. That's right, Frank said. It took the UN a while to agree to deploy their peacekeepers. They don't mind having the dirty work done by someone else. Of course not. And Earth itself? Anne asked again. Frank shrugged. The group of 7 seems to be getting things under control. He shook his head. It's hard to say from here. It's hard to say from here. It really is. All right, I think that's a good spot to stop. It's not a break. It's not an actual break in the book, but I think it makes narrative sense, I guess. I'm going to stop there. Arcady fucking died this week. I think that's enough. The whole gang is back together. Hooray. Merry Christmas, motherfuckers. Yeah, I don't need anything else happening. And I'll be able to summarize next week. As I just scream through tears, like, you fucking died.